Welcome to Christian Living in the End Times. I'm Jamie, a pastor, author, and a teacher. Money and the Bible, oil and energy. Very important topic, oil and energy. And yes, we're going to look at end times oil to see how oil and energy play a part in the end times. Energy makes life easier for us. Affordable energy gives the average person comfort and extra ability. Under normal earthly circumstances, these luxuries would be out of reach for most people, and they still are for many people on planet Earth. Energy performs work for us. Energy comes in many forms, such as petroleum, solar, geothermal, chemical, nuclear, hydroelectric, wind, wood, and that which is provided by animals and humans. And you might think of other forms of energy as well. There are many forms of energy, but some are more affordable and easily attainable. Certain kinds of energy are readily available. Probably the most basic form of energy is human energy, things that we can do. If a person had to get to his place of employment in the morning, he could walk to work, and that's certainly a very healthy way to get to work. Walking is limited to a few miles, however. Beyond that limit, it would be not practical for him to walk to work because his workday might be over by the time he arrived. If he had to walk 50 or 75 miles to work every day, it just is impractical. Animals can assist us with our work. One kind of work is transportation. If a man rode a horse to his job, he could get there faster and maybe less tired. Depends on the kind of horse, I guess. This improvement would allow him to have a few extra minutes before and after work, maybe for some simple activities. Now he might have time to do a few chores or read the newspaper. Work accomplished by the animal helps out the man. Improved transportation may empower him to get a better paying job. Better employment might now become available, which would be out of reach if he had walked. Work which was the horse could do makes the man's life more comfortable. The ability or the additional work provided opportunities he otherwise would not have. So now let's get our laboring man a transportation upgrade. We'll give him a bicycle. The bike would transport him about the same distance as the horse. He might even be able to go a little further on his bike than on horseback. The bicycle requires less maintenance and takes up less space, and now you don't have to pasture him, put him in a barn. You don't have to have those things for a bike. Bikes use pedals, gears, and wheels to extend man's work. If he had a car, think of the new possibilities which might open up for him. Various types of energy have been harnessed over the course of time, such as windmills in Europe turn mills for grinding grain. Wind energy has been tapped to pump water. Water wheels stationed alongside a flowing stream turn the grist mill's stone, for grinding the grain. For centuries, wood provided heat for warmth and cooking. Coal fueled the industrial age. Coal is a fossil fuel like oil and natural gas. Anthracite coal has the highest BTU, that's a British thermal unit, a measurement of the heat and energy. Anthracite coal has the highest BTU content and burns quite hot. The world's great coal, oil, and gas reserves were most likely formed just after the worldwide flood. Unbelievable amounts of plants and animals were living prior to the flood, which is recorded in Genesis, the Genesis flood. The plant material was covered by the deluge, that's the great flood, and pressed into the earth. Large quantities of water and mud covered these deposits, which were trapped underground. The extraordinary amount of plant and animal material stored energy in the form of hydrocarbons. Breaking the carbon and hydrogen bonds in petroleum, that releases energy. When this energy is captured, it can be transformed into helpful work. The work we get from putting gasoline into our tanks came from Noah's generation. It did not come from Noah himself since he was safely in the ark, right? Stored energy in fossil fuels comes mostly from compressed plant material located in underground deposits. Today, we benefit from energy which was formed in those previous generations. Coal is a hardened form of hydrocarbon. Tons of coal were burned during the industrial age, particularly in Great Britain and the United States. Other countries also burned coal too, but these nations were the hub of much invention during that era. Coal is especially abundant in the United States, in the Northeast, Midwest, and some Western states, and certain areas. During the early development of America, coal was transported to the great industrial cities in the eastern states. Coal also generated steam for the train engines. Trains carried coal to the large manufacturing locations. Coal was used to melt steel, manufacture products, heat homes, and move goods by barge. Coal kept America moving. However, coal can be dirty and cumbersome compared to other kinds of fuel. It makes a lot of ash and is heavy to transport. Coal is still an important component in producing affordable electricity. And today they have scrubbers on the plants, and they call it clean coal, where it's a whole lot less pollutant than what it once was when it's being burned. As technology advanced, oil took on a leading role. During the transition from coal to oil, natural gas was also being used. Methane is a primary element in natural gas. Gas was piped into some cities for lighting streets, lighting the street lamps, and heating cook stoves. Natural gas is cleaner burning and can be safer than other forms of petroleum, actually. Yet natural gas is not as conveniently transported as liquid oil. Oil rose to the top of the world's favorite energy source. Before we get into the exploration of oil's advantages, let's take a look at electricity first. So hang in there. This is very important to understand where we've been, to why energy and oil is such an important commodity for the end times. So electricity. Electricity makes our computer age possible. In fact, even today with AI is just sucking up electricity. They're even coming up with different forms, the micronuclear plants and things like that, just so that AI can continue going. So electricity is incredibly important in the end times. Electronic devices feed on electricity. Electricity is readily available in the cities and suburbs. Nowadays, most farms and ranches in the U.S. have power, too, if not almost all of them. Without electricity, our modern world just would not exist. Think of all the appliances, devices, computers, televisions, games, health devices, and many other conveniences powered by electricity. How is all this power produced? Well, electricity is made mostly by burning fossil fuels such as coal and natural gas. A small percentage of electricity is created by nuclear, hydroelectric, wind, and solar power. And yes, these are taking more percentage than what they used to even 10 or 20 years ago with wind and solar power. But notice this, yet it still takes oil to make those other sources available. You still have to send workers in trucks burning diesel fuel to move the wind blades around and the solar panels around and to hook everything up and to manufacture them. And so oil is still a great component even in these other sources of energy. When it comes right down to it, the modern world runs on fossil fuels. God placed these large quantities of oil preserves in the ground, and they sat there almost completely untapped until now. So notice this. We have this, if this is true, that God, after the flood, you know, pressed these great reserves and plant materials, etc., in the ground, and that's where we get our oil, natural gas, and coal from, then it's just kind of sat there for years and years and years until our modern times. In fact, it was the Drake oil well. It was the first oil well drilled near Titusville, Pennsylvania in 1859. You know, and so anyway, the first oil well launched the world into the petroleum age. 150 years is not a long time to be using oil. And we still even have things today named after that. You know, Pennzoil, like from Pennsylvania, Quaker State from the Quakers who founded Pennsylvania, really, and William Penn and his dad, named after his dad, Penn's Woods, Pennsylvania. So just a very important part of American history and early industrial revolution in the United States of America. So anyway, 1859, what's that, a little over 150 years ago. 150 years is not a long time to be using oil, particularly out of world history. Let's just say 6,000 years, or even 4,400 years or 4,500 years since the flood. This is especially true when you think about the entire time of human history. Oil is being exploited at this precise time in world history. It's not an accident that the Lord has allowed us to use it today. The Lord allows many gracious works to be done with this tapped energy. The same energy is also being used to set the stage for end times events. End times events. You can't have anybody ruling the world without oil. And you think, well, maybe in the future that'll happen. Well, it seems like everything is converging on now. Now, this era of world history, which happens to have oil and petroleum products there. Oil can be transported just as easily as the other fossil fuels. Refined oil is used in cars, trains, airplanes, factories, and homes. All forms of fossil fuels are important components of energy production and usage. Without question, oil is cheap. For example, try propelling a jet with coal or natural gas. Well, I admit, yes, it may be possible. Right now, it's just not very convenient or economical. Without oil, our modern way of living would lose most of its comforts. The ease of performing many everyday tasks would rapidly disappear. Oil is also a significant contributor to dozens of products we use daily. I mean, the plastics come from oil and plastic packaging and all these kinds of things. Many manufactured goods contain petroleum. Others are made by using it. There are just too many examples to name here. It's just incredible. Cheap oil is what makes the world the way it is. You think oil's cheap? Well, compared to what it does, it is. Without cheap oil, our society would change almost overnight. Inexpensive oil makes the average person be able to live as comfortable as he does. Think of all the miles people ride, drive, or fly. In fact, sometimes if you look at truckers and semi-truck drivers, if you have something in a town, most likely it got there by a truck by oil. And I know that there are electric trucks and other things coming on, but for the most part, it's oil, it's diesel that gets things around by especially these big tankers and cargo ships and things going around the world. Inexpensive oil makes the average person be able to live as comfortable as he does. Think of all the miles people ride, drive, or fly. What would be the consequence if the price of oil was doubled or tripled or even more? Most people would have to do without of the many conveniences we take for granted every day. For the work it accomplishes, oil is still the bargain of the century. I mean, you put a gallon of diesel in somebody that's driving a backhoe, and they know what they're doing. They can do the work faster than maybe even 50 or 100 men. It's just incredible. That's just one example. So for the work it accomplishes, oil is still the bargain of the century. It really is. Think about how much work a gallon of gas or diesel fuel does. If the price of oil would drastically rise, it would adversely affect most of the population. Many people would have to do without a lot of the products and services they're used to having. Those who could afford to would still have access to most of those things. The very wealthy, yes, they would still have to pay more, but they would still have access to all that, things that they're used to having. Right now, oil is traded in US dollars, or at least for now. And we call it the petrodollar. The petrodollar. Oil is tagged to the barrel of oil. And so if you want to buy and sell, trade oil, it has to be done in US dollars, at least for now. So that's one reason. So when we went off the gold standard, I think it was Henry Kissinger that was it Bretton Woods Agreement, where they had the U.S. dollar tagged to the to a barrel of oil. So at least it has something backing it up. But anyway, one reason is that the U.S. dollar is the world reserve currency. The oil trade connection protects to some degree the value of the U.S. dollar. That may be changing. One way to directly affect the value of the dollar is to trade oil or anything else, trade oil in another country. We should expect this change to happen one day. In fact, we see that now with the BRICS nations, BRICS. And so these different nations are trading amongst themselves without the U.S. dollar. See, so it's a direct frontal assault on the U.S. dollar. Those who wish to harm the U.S. dollar will lobby to trade oil in another currency. One might be traded in a basket or a group of currencies. Still, oil should be traded in some unforeseen currency. In order to understand the future direction of world power, watch to see what unit of money they will use to trade oil. In other words, if right now the U.S. dollar is the strongest currency and it's used to trade oil, if the world gets off of that one day or diminishes that, whatever nation or groups of nations come against the U.S. dollar and is able to overcome the U.S. dollar, that's the political power on planet Earth at that time. So the U.S. would diminish, and these other countries would rise to equal power or greater power, perhaps. So keep an eye on that. Reasonably priced energy is what makes our modern life comfortable. Energy does work which otherwise would require incredible amounts of manual labor and time. Cheap energy brings comfort to the masses of people. Low-priced oil is the prime form of inexpensive energy. Again, this is low price compared to the work value that it does, not to yesterday's prices. In other words, you're looking at, while gasoline sure is up as compared to what it was 10 or 20 years ago. Well, that's true for many factors and many reasons. However, if you just, instead of going to the store next time to get groceries, don't drive your car, but walk and then carry your groceries. And you think, oh, you know what? That oil isn't that expensive after all. It did a lot of work that I would have to do. So this way of bringing relief to an average person may one day come to an end. Although there are still large deposits of coal, gas, and oil around the world, it is not getting any easier to retrieve those reserves. In fact, it's taking more effort to get fossil fuels out of the ground. It used to be you could basically just like put a straw down into the ground and suck the oil out and send it off to a refinery and then go put it to work. but it's not quite so easy anymore. And I've greatly simplified it. I worked in the oil field before, and so I know the incredible hard work it is um, to get oil out of the ground. But yet I'm just making it simplistic so that we can have something to compare it to. Oil production must now be developed in more difficult locations. It's still out there, it's just harder to get. Most of the easy to reach oil has already been tapped into. The easiest oil to get is also the cheapest oil. It is true that oil is being discovered and retrieved in offshore areas and in the Arctic, but that is not as convenient to getting it oil is closer to home. Horizontal drilling and hydraulic fracturing are innovative methods used to get more oil to flow, yet these methods take energy in themselves. It takes a lot of energy to frack a well. That's hydraulic fracturing. And so in order to get the oil back out, you have to put more and more energy into it to get it out and to get to harder to reach places. Greater amounts of energy are required to get oil to the market. It's like farming, a farmer taking his produce to the market. Well, the farmer is close to the market. It does not cost much to get his food there. To get his goods there, to take his produce there. Farm to market. But if the farmer must drive many miles of long road just to reach his buyer, it costs him more to get his product to the market. And thus it would cost more to the consumer as well. Increasingly, more oil is being burned up just to get the oil that's remaining. You see, so it's kind of like I would say a vicious cycle, but it's kind of more of a one-way thing. It's like a snowball effect. The oil is available, it just costs more to extract compared to previous years. Other factors come into play concerning oil usage. China is a powerhouse of a nation, gobbling up all the energy it can get its hands on. Other developing nations like India are following suit, and other nations as well. World population is rapidly increasing. That means more people are competing for the same limited resources. There's only so much to go around. Every country seems to be using more energy. It is a daily challenge to supply the increasing demand. It's an incredible number of barrels of oil that has to be pumped out every day, and natural gas and coal, just to keep the world economy the way it is, going the way it is. Every country seems to be using more energy. See, going from from primitive countries uh, to more appliances and more vehicles and more a nicer way of living, and it just takes more energy to do all that. It's a daily challenge to supply the increasing demand. It could be possible we are approaching peak oil. Now notice that some people think, well, there's no peak oil. Well, eventually there is. It's just peak oil just means you're at the halfway point of everything that's available. But notice this. Some people get it wrong. This does not mean we will run out of oil soon. Peak oil means that we have already retrieved all of the easy to get oil that there is. If that is true, we're entering into the era of more expensive oil at a time when world petroleum usage is at its greatest. You see, it's getting harder to get, but we're using more. Tension between world supply and global demand will come one day to a head. So it's like low-hanging fruit on a tree. If you have an apple tree and you can pick all the low-hanging fruit, and that's the way oil production was, a few decades ago, there's plenty and it was easy to get. And prices were low and everybody could get it that they wanted to. So now you have to reach up higher on the tree and get a little bit more. And now you have to get a ladder and get up on the apple tree and get a little bit more. And then, so eventually you're halfway up the apple tree. That's peak oil. So now you have to start getting more tools out and try to there's still apples on the tree, and maybe even some of the nicer ones that are at the top, but it's just harder to get. It takes more energy to get up there and get them, and then to bring them down. And so that's like peak oil. It's like there's still oil out there. It's just getting harder to get. Projecting from our present world energy situation could mean this: nations get anxious that the supply of oil will diminish. This would make the price skyrocket. In order to protect its own interest, each nation will begin taking desperate measures. International leaders might demand that oil be traded in a group or a basket of the nation's top currencies. So instead of just the US dollar, maybe it's the Chinese yuan and the Japanese yen, maybe the Russian ruble, United States dollar, and maybe one or two others. It would be a group of them pegged to one another. This move would most likely be a huge step toward a one world currency. One world currency. This scenario would cause the United States to weaken in global influence. Doesn't mean she's not still here. It just means that her influence is greatly diminished. This situation could lead to a greatly altered way of living for Americans caught unawares. World powers will continue a full court press, gathering all of the energy resources each one can get. One global leader may at that time have a seemingly good solution to the world's energy problems. Energy's limited supply could play a key role in setting up end times events. See, that's where we're looking at, is all this is coming to a climax, and someone has a good solution, and someone who's eventually the Antichrist would have control over the world's energy supplies, and maybe this is how the world gets there. These kinds of situations and these factors apply. This might be a way energy plays a pivotal role in the future. God kept this energy untapped until our time, just within the last 1, 2, or 3, maybe 4 generations. This energy is being used to proclaim the gospel to all nations, that Jesus Christ died for our sins. He died for us. We were sinners, and so he died for us. He was buried, but yet he didn't stay dead. He rose again from the third day. So we are justified by faith in his blood. So God's using this energy to proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ and to all nations. However, this same energy also makes a one world government possible. This kind of government could be one that would have control over every soul on earth. You see, the Antichrist will reign one day over every soul on earth. And even during the tribulation, there will be those who reject him but trust Christ as Savior. Many of them get martyred. If they're willing to trust Christ as Savior during difficult times, are you willing to trust Christ as your Savior during an easier time as this? So let's consider, what is energy and what can it do for us? It makes life easier, doesn't it? Why is oil the most convenient form of energy? See, it's easier than coal and nuclear as far as for the average person being able to use it. In what currency might oil one day be traded? Right now it's the US dollar, but take note of the pressure against that. That's where the political world powers will tip that direction, whoever controls that. How could oil play a key role in the Lord's plan for the end times? Well, let's remember Psalm 90, verse 12 during this day. So teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom.